Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Sir Hairul. We are from Group Alpaca. We present our findings on the financial ratios and the application of MCCG for Westports Holding Berhad and CRG Incorporated Sdn Berhad. Before that, me myself Nur Shahida will present on the introduction for both companies. First company is Westport Holding Berhad, which is a public listed company listed in Bursa, Malaysia. It was established in 1993, where the company involved in transportation and logistic industry. Its main business activity is managing port operations that deals with container and conventional cargo. Besides, Westport also provides a wide range of port services such as rental, ancillary, and marine services. It is based in Port Klang and has two company subsidiaries which are Westports Malaysia Sdn Berhad and Pembinaan Rekzai Sdn Berhad. The company also handles gateway and transshipment container cargo, and all the ports are located near the main shipping route along the Straits of Malacca. Currently, the company is demonstrating high environmental, social and governance practices, and in 2019, 80% of market share of container business in Port Klang is represented by Westports. Move to the next company, which is CRG Incorporated Sdn Berhad. It is a private limited company, but the company was converted into a public limited company on August 2018, and in November 2018, CRG was being listed on the lead market of Bursa Malaysia. It also known as Carlo Reno, which is an investment holding company, while their subsidiaries are mainly involved in the design, marketing and retailing of women footwear, handbags and accessories, and provisions of management services. The brand has been operated for 34 years and licensed the trademarks to the Carlo Reno brand in 2012 to allow them to have presence in Indonesia and Vietnam. Besides, CRG also market their products through third-party e-commerce marketplaces, which are Zalora in 2014, Lazada in 2016, and Shopee in 2018. Currently, there are 37 boutiques and outlets and over 90 departmental stores counters of Carlo Reno brand in Malaysia and other parts of the world.
Next, we proceed with comparing both company financial ratios. Firstly, we analyze the profitability as well as return on investment ratios. For gross profitability, as we can see in the slide, Westport has higher gross profit margin ratio, which is 62.36%, which shows that Westport have a high efficiency of cooperation than CRG. Next, net profitability. From the ratio calculated, it can be seen that Westport converted to 3.14% of its revenue into profit, while CRG only converted 3.54% of its revenue. The third ratio, which is return on asset, Westport has higher ROA compared to CRG, which shows that Westport is more effective in deploying its asset to turn them into profit compared to CRG. The fourth one, for the return on investment, both companies have a positive ROI, which indicates that the businesses already receive what they have spent. However, Westport seems to gain more return from its investment. Next, earning per share. It can be viewed that a quite huge gap between EPS of both companies, which are 1.32 cent and 0.5 cent respectively. This shows that Westport is able to pay higher dividend to each shareholder compared to CRG. Next, for investment turnover ratio, CRG have a higher investment turnover compared to Westport, which means for every ringgit invested, CRG generated RM 1.28 ringgit, meanwhile Westport only generated 35 cents. Next, we move on to the second type of ratios, which is liquidity ratios. Firstly, current ratio. CRG is higher than Westport, which shows that CRG is more liquidated to settle their short-term obligations using asset compared to Westport. Next, for quick ratio, CRG is more liquidate compared to Westport as CRG is better in paying its current liabilities at 6.18 times over using its most liquid asset. However, both companies liquidate well in paying its obligations since both ratio above than 1. Lastly, cash ratio. The cash ratio of CRG is higher than Westport, which shows that CRG has more cash and cash equivalent and able to cover all short-term debt, yet still have more cash remaining compared to Westport.
Now, let's see how Westport and CRG's asset and business operations are financed using debt or equity. Overall, Westport has the higher leverage ratio in compared to CRG. In terms of debt to equity ratio, CRG may have a solid cash inflow, while Westport is quite dependent on debt. Moreover, if we refer to asset to equity ratio, a relatively high proportion may indicate that Westport has taken on substantial debt merely to maintain its business, which it is indicates lot of asset and very little equity. However, for both companies, the debt to asset ratio is less than 1, means the company owns more asset than the liability and can meet its obligation by selling its asset if needed. Operating ratio is being calculated to measure how efficiently the management of the company at keeping low cost in generating high revenue for the company. In comparing Westport with CRG, Westport is perceived as more efficient in generating revenue relative to its operating expense. On the other hand, in terms of efficiency, Westport is more efficient collecting its credit it has extended to its customer, turn them into cash, as the company has the higher proportion of quality customer that pay debt quickly. Also, Westport is far better than the CRG in managing its inventory flow. CRG only turns over its inventory around 3 times during the year of assessment 2019. However, based on our analysis, CRG is using its asset more efficiently compared to Westport in 2019.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Amira. I will present on intended outcome 1.0 based upon MCCG 2017. Westport have applied the practice from this intended outcome by having the experienced board with the ultimate aims to enhance shareholders' value. Besides, the chairman played the role as facilitator and performed his responsibility by monitoring good corporate governance. Westport also have separate the chairman and the managing director who play the role as CEO and hire two qualified and competent company secretary to support the board. Director also will be provided with agenda at least 14 days before the board meeting. However, for CRG, no information that comply with the intended outcome 1.0 provided. Next, intended outcome 2.0, Westport has applied that practice 2.1 in which to have a board charter that set out the key values, principles and ethos of the company. The board will periodically review the board charter to keep the new changes in regulations and best practice. The board charter also can be accessed through the company website. The charter also assists the board by having independent assessment of the independent director through the NRCGC. In comparison to CRG, it does not apply second intended outcome, which the company does not have the board charter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. My name is Nordini binti Abdul Latif. So now I will explain on the intended outcome number 3 and number 4. I will start first with the intended outcome number 3. Westports company do establish code of conduct ethics in the company. They also encourage their workers to report any unethical conduct, and they also annually reviewed the policy of code of conduct. They also publish the code of conduct on their websites, which has 9 pages. For CRG company, we couldn't find any disclosures related to the intended outcome number 3. Moving on to the intended outcome number 4, Westports company boards of members has 13 members, which comprises 6 independent directors and 3 non-independent directors. This shows that the Westports company do follow the framework stated by MCCG, which wants majority of the board of members are independent directors. NRCGC considers diversity in skills, experience, age, cultures, background and gender in their board of members. The board of members has 3 female directors, which equivalent to 27.3% out of the total of members. This shows that the company almost reached the 30% stated in the MCCG 2017. The NRCGC also considered recommendations from the directors and various other sources to find the potential candidates for the board of members. They also proved that the chairman is an independent director. For CRG company, we only found that the chairman is an independent director. Other related informations regarding the intended outcome number 4 are not being disclosed. That's all from me, so I will pass to the next presenter.
I'm Aisha Nadia. I will continue with the intended outcome 5.0. Stakeholders are able to form an opinion on the overall effectiveness of the board and individual directors. For practice 5.1, Westports carried out the annual assessment of the board effectiveness as a whole, the board committees, and the performance of each individual directors. The board assessment consists of the board and board committees evaluation, assessment of the character, experience, integrity, competence, time commitment, and level of independence of the independent director. The company carried out on staff and peer assessment basis. According to the annual report, the board was agreed with the result which secured the stakeholders' interest. For CRG Incorporated, there is an annual assessment also to evaluate the board effectiveness, including the independence of independent non-executive director. There are no other details on how it was conducted and who were responsible behind the assessment. To summarize, both Westport and CRG applied the intended outcome 5.0. However, Westports disclosed more details than CRG. Next, for the intended outcome 6.0, it is about the remuneration policy which must take into account the company's desire to attract and retain the right talent. For practice 6.1, you can see that Westport had conducted an annual review on the director's remuneration policy done by MCCG, where they review and recommend the remuneration packages of the executive chairman and GMD to the board for approval. They also set out the criteria and recommended and take into consideration both financial and non-financial performance. However, for CRG, they did not disclose any information about the annual review on the remuneration package. Next, for practice 6.2, for Westport, they do have remuneration committee called Nomination, Remuneration and Corporate Governance Committee (NRCGC), who provide direction and oversight the company's operation. They involved in the annual review and recommendation to the Board of Directors remuneration policy. However, for CRG, there is no section mentioned about the remuneration committee and term of reference.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Suhaila. So for the intended outcome 7.0, it is about the ability for the stakeholder to access director and senior management remuneration. Under the practice 7.1, Westport disclosed the details of the company director remuneration on their annual report. It is performed under the name basis, and they also mention the exact amount of fees, salary, bonus, benefit in kind, and also other emolument. Next, CRG also disclosed the information on the director remuneration. However, they did not specifically mention on the name basis for the remuneration on the individual director. Next, for the practice 7.2, Westport able to disclose the top 5 senior management remuneration in band of 50,000 as mentioned in the MCCG 2017. However, it is without on name basis and do not state the related component of the senior management. In contrast with CRG, there is no disclosure on name basis on the remuneration of the 5 senior management. In conclusion, we can see that Westport is performing better in the financial aspect compared to CRG. After reviewing the annual report, we can say that big company like Westport applied most of the outcome and practice suggested by the MCCG 2017 compared to the small companies like CRG. It also can be said that the big company usually disclose more information in their annual report. Thus, in our opinion, all companies, regardless small or big company, should follow the MCCG framework, and they also need to disclose their corporate governance practice that be applied in their company to inform people out there the compliance of the company with the framework. That's all from us. Thank you.